I'd like to welcome you to the Christening the Ocean Rowing podcast. In today's podcast, we'll be talking to Charlie Martel, holder of 2 Guinness World Records and a professional philanthropist by the measure of the word. He's due to set off on a row across the North Pacific Ocean for 6,000 miles, or 9,700 kilometers, to become the first Briton to complete this route unsupported. His goals are to set a new crossing record for the ocean rowing of the North Pacific Ocean, to become the first Briton to complete the route alone and unsupported, and in doing so he will raise funds for 3 charities that we'll talk about in the podcast. Joining me from Iraq this morning is Charlie Martel. He's ready to set off on his adventure, departing from Japan, heading all the way to San Francisco. The interview you're about to hear was recorded on March 28th, and Charlie was stationed in Iraq where he's working in mine clearance operations. You'll hear lots of distortion and clicks and pings throughout the broadcast. That was when we lost the satellite, and you might even notice that it's been cut a few times, so please bear with me. This is the first podcast. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning, yeah, I'm very well, thanks.
Great. So Charlie, this is quite the undertaking. Tell me what chose you to do this, and what was your inspiration? Everyone has that moment that seems to just set them off and want to do something different than the norm. What was it for you?
Yeah, this actually goes back some time from when I rowed across the Atlantic as a group of 4. There was 4 of us that rowed from New York back to the UK, and I was one of those 4. And apparently when I stood off the boat at the end of the race across the North Atlantic, my first thing I said to my father was, "The Pacific's next." Now, I don't remember this, but he keeps reminding me. So 3 years ago, I decided to start planning for the Pacific.
That's great. Family inspiration is always a powerful thing. I know I draw on inspiration from my family members from time to time. Was there anything else? Were you thinking about the Pacific perhaps when you were crossing the Atlantic?
I'm not sure if I was actually, but you mentioned inspiration there. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this is one of the charities I work with is called Toe in the Water, where we take injured servicemen yacht racing and give them a sort of an opportunity to be back as part of a team again. And to see these guys, some of them with limbs missing and some with mental injuries, to come out of their shells or to adapt to a yacht which has not been adapted at all to them, see them crack on and do what we asked them to do is absolutely fantastic. To see them be part of a team again, and that's where the inspiration really came from. That's
amazing. I mean, it's a powerful thing. I think your charities, when I was doing reading on them, are motivational. We'll chat about that a little bit later, and maybe what made you choose them. So now, you don't just jump into this willy-nilly. What started you on your quest in ocean rowing? Was it a movie or a friend or general curiosity? What if you could think back to, your first graze with ocean rowing, what was that for you?
Well, funnily enough, I was at school with somebody called Rebecca Ridgway. Now, Rebecca's dad rowed the Atlantic in 1966 with a guy called Che Blythe. So I think that was when it was first put into my mind as a small seed a long, long time ago. And then several years later, quite a long time later, in 2007, in 1997, I heard about the Atlantic rowing race, and I thought, right, that's for me.
Right on.
Unfortunately, I couldn't raise enough sponsorship to do it, so I waited my time, and 2006 came around, and that was my time.
That's brilliant. Rebecca person that you mentioned, I'm quite a newbie to ocean rowing. Can you tell me more about your relationship with her?
She was just a friend at school. It was actually her father who I met some years later, who was ex-parachute regiment, along with his mate. He was a captain in the parachute regiment, and the guy he rowed with was a guy called Sergeant Che Blythe. So Rebecca was at school with me, and I can't remember actually hearing about it, but that was the first time I came across her and realised, about this thing called ocean rowing, which as a kid you don't really think anything about it. But like I said, I think that's when the seed was first sort of developed. She's gone on to do some mad things, like be the first woman to canoe around Cape Horn or something silly like this.
That's classic. That's quite amazing. I'm always inspired by people who try to do new things. We had Adam Creek, an Olympic gold medalist, set a record here in Victoria, BC, Canada, for the maximum amount of people ever in paddling at the same time. I mean, there's all these there's all these amazing records that are just waiting to be thrashed. You know what I mean? Right. So this is always one of the hot button questions, and it's a very controversial topic when it comes to ocean rowing. But to train your training regimes and the kind of training you've been doing, I mean, many people prescribe by different things. There's things to do with conditioning or tapering too. Now, to train for this is always sort of a question of interest. Could you please enlighten those who sort of on the inner circle of ocean rowing? What is it? What kind of feat are you dealing with to train for something of this magnitude?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think that would vary hugely from ocean rower to ocean rower. Personally, I don't like the idea of training on an ergo because I've suffered from repetitive strain injury last time of doing too much time on the ergo. So I steer away from the ergo Concept 2 style rowing machines, although they are very good for staying fit, for cardiovascular and other things. For me personally, that's what I don't use. What I do is I tend to stay fit and sort of an average or above average fitness, either by running, swimming, cycling, or doing something using a TRX. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a great bit of kit developed by US Navy SEAL. Yep. Anyway, the point for me is just to stay fit, above average fitness, and do general fitness as opposed to specific body fitness for rowing. On this particular challenge, my personal view is that it's all about the mental fitness, not the physical fitness. I'm actually training every other day at the moment with this TRX. The days off, I'm eating lots of pasta, trying to put weight on. And as much as I can, I'm trying to think about the days ahead of me and what it's going to be like to be on my own in huge seas, worrying about all sorts of things and things breaking. It's the mental challenge for me, not so much the physical.
That's what in discussions with others, I don't have a great deal of ocean rowing experience myself, but I know it's the mental challenge more than the physical challenge so much. I mean, you have to be a joker, you have to be lighthearted, you have to be able to sing to yourself. There's a lot of different qualities that, to me, from what I understand in speaking to professionals in the field, you have to be able to be lighthearted about those things and not wear them too heavy. You know what I mean? Now,
don't take it seriously. Yeah.
You mentioned the ergometer. Have you we use any specific piece of kit for the training? We're using a Concept series machine, or
no? Purely TRX.
Purely TRX.
A friend of mine who's still serving commando engineer with the British Army. He introduced me to the TRX, and I thought, okay, this is a bit of a gimmick. But in fact, it's you can beast yourself as much as hard as you want to because you set the angles and the training standards to fit you. So I found it really rewarding and good for me.
That's impressive. I'm very impressed with that. And everybody always talks erg and ergometers. I know in a lot of the movies that I've watched, it's completely erg. And now, do you have any worries about this trip that you do to be on? Are you excited or scared about what will happen on the way? What would you say is your biggest fear heading onto this trip, other than perhaps the water maker stopping or something like that? What would you say if you had one fear you had to conquer?
It's a very good question. My biggest fear is equipment failure, to be honest. And as you say, other than the water maker stopping, what else is there? If I have sustained amount of bad weather, cloud cover, then I won't be able to charge the batteries, which means no water maker. So although the water maker might be fine, without any power, that doesn't work. I'm excited, scared, and worried all at the same time because I think I'm really looking forward to getting on with it because it's been a long time in planning. I am nervous, of course. I mean, I think anyone going out there on their own saying they're not nervous or not scared or not worried about something is probably a liar or just absolutely mental. So it's one of those. Failure overall is a big fear because there's been 11 failed attempts before me. They've all failed for different reasons, whether it be equipment failure, whether it be capsize and loss of equipment. Lessons learned from that is I'm going out there with a very well prepared boat. Everything will be lashed down or tied down or locked away.
Absolutely.
And the hatches locked at all. So it's a combination of those really.
Have you done capsizing drills? Have you done preparations for capsizing drills? Is that something that you feel you're ready for?
Yeah, definitely. I spent some time off the south coast of Devon, a place called Teignmouth, with the Royal National Lifeboat Institute. A friend of mine, a school teacher and a part-time volunteer, and they're on the water to assist me just in case things went wrong. But we had the boat out in the water. She was totally empty, which makes her potentially harder to self-right because there's no ballast in her.
Yeah.
And getting her over, she didn't capsize very easily. She took 2 divers in the water and myself to capsize her. And once she was upside down, we let go and she was back over within a few seconds. Now that's when she's empty. So when she's got ballast down the centre line of the boat, below the waterline pretty much, she's going to be extremely stable in the water. And if she does capsize, she'll be back up the right way within seconds.
That's excellent. I mean, that's always a capacity of a vessel to self-right is always, from a nautical naval architecture standpoint, is a very important thing. Have you studied stability in great depth? Have you had any formalized stability coursing before this journey, or?
No, not at all. No, I mean, I've spent many opportunities on the water from the age of 6 upwards. My grandfather's in the Navy, so I had opportunities to sail with him, and as much as I can, I sail in my spare time back in UK. So the stability has come from experience rather than from knowledge. The boat's been designed by a well-known boat designer. It's been built by a well-known boat builder. So I've got the best quality boat in terms of design and build. It's now to me to make it go across that ocean.
Absolutely, and there's mountains to be said for experience in the field as opposed to sitting in a classroom having somebody point at drawings to you too. Excellent. Now, you hold 2 world records, Charlie. Can you tell us more about them? And can you tell us more about what was the sort of driving force behind wanting to break those records?
Yeah, interesting. They both came from the Atlantic rowing race in 2006 when we were Team HESCO powered by Commando Joe. The first record was rowing the longest distance rowed point to point across the North Atlantic west to east, which was 3,317 miles. That's the voyage we took. So that was one world record. The second one, which is rather more embarrassing, is that all 4 of them became the oldest crew ever to row an ocean at the combined age of 155 years.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm honest. To be honest with you, it's not such an embarrassing record. I mean, people, as they get older, you realise you've only got one life to live, and to set those records, that's a very important thing, and making the most of the life that you live. Yeah. So you have 2 charities that you're absolutely fallen in love with, and that you're a part of, and I just wondered if you could tell us more about them specifically.
Yeah, definitely. The first one, as I mentioned previously, is about the injured servicemen in the UK who've come back from operations overseas. Some have got some severe injuries, i.e. limbs missing, or maybe has some skin damage or flesh damage, and some may have mental injuries. The injuries vary. But the point was, I joined Turn the Water UK several years ago to be part of the core crew. Now, what we normally do is take 50% of the crew, our able-bodied crew called the core crew, and the other 50% are injured servicemen who do 2 to 3 races per season with us, and then they go on to the next phase of their rehab or end of their rehab. It depends on which one is the most appropriate. Through Turn the Water, I've met numerous people who've got various injuries, from limbs missing to severe flesh damage to mental injuries, and each and every one of them I've met. Some of them have never sailed before, some have. None of them have raced on a big yacht, and when we bring them to these races, they are normally quite introvert. Some aren't, some are. But when they finish with us, all of them want to have a chat about it. All of them quite enjoy it. And that's my first sort of inspiration. The second charity is called Give Them a Sporting Chance, and I was lucky enough to be invited onto the management team of Give Them a Sporting Chance several years ago. And what we do is we aim to give sporting chances to disabled people and or their carers. So if somebody disabled or their carer wants to go do something sporty, it might be a skydive, it might be to go sailing, it might be to do anything like this, then we try to give them an opportunity to do that, because often the carers have forgotten about it. Your focus is very much on the safety. But we don't discriminate we obviously want to try and help out both sides. And this isn't just for adults, this is children, and that's quite rewarding as well. And I'm currently trying to help a disabled woman who's paralysed sort of from the armpits down, to go and do a sailing day with a adapted trimaran. So it's a boat with 2 outriggers to go sailing.
Oh wow!
That should be happening when I'm out on the Pacific.
That's fantastic, Charlie. I mean, that's a huge feat to be able to do that, and it's a huge feat to be involved in that kind of thing. Giving people who have disabilities the ability to do something that they haven't done before is such a wonderful thing. When I took a look at your site on Facebook, that's Pacific 2012 on Facebook, I noticed that you had some celebrity visits. Can you tell me more about the celebrity visits and who you got to see?
There's Princess Anne.
Wow, Princess Anne.
Princess Anne is the patron of Give Them a Sporting Chance, and she's very much behind what I'm doing. I saw her just last week before I came back to Iraq, and she's very much on side, wishing me well, and that's all great, you know. To have someone in her capacity when she's very busy looking forward towards the Olympics in the UK was huge, and that was great. The other 2 people who are UK sailing celebrities, if you like, are Brian Thompson and Dee Caffari. They're both our ambassadors for Turn the Water, one of the charities I'm raising money for, and Brian, I think, has 27 world records for sailing, and Dee has 2 or 3 at least.
Wow, 27 world records, that's a lot.
So to have their support and to get information and advice and their experiences handed to me has been fantastic as well.
Now, Charlie, there was a third charity you mentioned sort of off the podcast that you were talking about that was based out of the United States. Did you want to chat more about that?
It's called Operation Second Chance, and the reason why I'm not advertising it too much is because it's in the USA. It's a charity for injured servicemen or injured war veterans who return from overseas operations who have injuries. They're being looked after by many charities, but the particular one I've chosen is Operation Second Chance. And the reason why I'm not advertising it too much is because, like I say, it's stateside. They're going to use Pacific 2012 as a vehicle or as a method of raising cash in the States using US dollars from the US people. Whereas the other 2 charities I've spoken about, Turn the Water and Give Them a Sporting Chance, are very much UK-based charities, and I'm raising UK pounds for those charities, and that's where the difference lies.
That's great. Now, rowing from Japan to California, or the Californian continent, so to speak, are you scared at all about the debris field? Because in Victoria, we've had debris wash up over here. We had a freighter, for instance, show up on our front doorstep.
Yeah, I've done a bit of monitoring of it, and I think it's going to be quite a long way south from where I'm going, so I'm planning on taking the Great Circle route. What I have noticed, actually, there was a ghost ship found not too far off Canada recently, so that proves that there is still debris transiting from west to east across the North Pacific. But I hope that the big island of junk is far, far south of where I'm going to be, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still being monitored, and in terms of importance and hazards to navigation, for larger vessels, it's not so much a hazard to navigation unless there's big chunks of metal in there. Now, Charlie, if people want to stay in touch with you, what method can they use to stay in touch with you?
Blossom, BLOSSOM, at Pacific2012.com.
Blossom at Pacific2012.com?
Blossom being the name of my boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Christened. That's excellent, Charlie. Thank you so much, and thank you for chatting with us on the Ocean Rowing Podcast. It's great to hear from you, and we want to wish you well. Those people in Canada and overseas, if they get a chance, can watch the Discovery Channel online and see more on Charlie's adventures. There'll be constant updates on Facebook and Twitter. There'll be lots of information for people to be able to stay tuned with. So stay tuned to Pacific2012.com and stay in touch with Charlie. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be signing off with you. Thank you.
No problem at all. Yeah, it's really good to talk. It's quite like talking about this sort of thing because it's fun and it's going to be a difficult adventure. So yeah, the more I can think back to doing interviews, etc., makes it a bit easier.
That was Charlie Martel broadcasting live from Iraq, where he's working in mine clearance operations. Charlie will be rowing across the Pacific Ocean solo as the first Briton to ever cross the ocean unsupported. He's taking the North Pacific route, and it was just great to catch up with him. We'd like to thank you all for joining us on the Ocean Rowing Podcast, and stay tuned for future podcasts. It's just great to be in touch with you all, and if you have any suggestions for the Ocean Rowing Podcast, you can send them through to oceanrowingpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach us anytime, and we'll be on Facebook, Ocean Rowing Podcast, and also on Twitter, Ocean Rowing Podcast. Stay tuned for future podcasts and updates, and we'll have some video footage as well for a video podcast. Stay tuned.